Hello, Miss Merrill. How are you doing
I'm
today?
good. How are you?
I'm good. It's good to see you again.
Yeah.
So I scheduled this conference so that we could go over Sophie's recent high stakes test.
Okay.
Now we took a national achievement test in March. A national achievement test is a test in which every student across the nation is required to take.
Okay.
This test shows us scores in which we can analyze to see our students' progress.
Okay.
The top of this sheet has the basic demographic information, such as the student's name, the grade, the school, the test date, etc.
Okay.
Now, there are two different tables on here. The first table, the top one, is the norm reference scores, and the bottom is the criterion-based scores.
Okay.
So first we'll go over the norm reference. A norm reference compares Sophie's scores to a norm group.
Okay.
A norm group is a group of students across the U.S. who take this test before it was released, and it's used as a comparison for our students' scores. The norm reference section is read from left to right, and it has different content areas and then is broken down into different subtests. So, for example, reading would be the content area, and the subtest for that would be vocabulary and word analysis.
Okay. So if I'm reading this right, for math, the subtest would be math concepts, problem solving, and procedures.
Perfect.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Looking at this table, what does basic battery and complete battery mean?
That is a great question. A lot of people have questions with that, so
Yeah.
Great question. Basic battery only includes reading, math, spelling, and language arts.
Okay.
Now, complete battery is all those subjects together, but it also includes science and social studies.
Okay.
So that the complete battery is every single subject.
Okay.
Now, looking at here, you can see this column right here stands for the number of items, and the column next to it stands for raw score. Okay. Now, for example, you can see in language there were 45 questions, and she got 41 correct, which is awesome. I was very proud of her when I saw this.
Yeah, that's good.
Now, moving on to the next column, that is national percentiles, okay? And a lot of people think percentiles means percentages, but it actually doesn't. If you were to look at this, you'd be like, oh gosh, a 53, a 49.
Yeah,
not
it's
good.
a little scary.
No, those do not mean percentages whatsoever. Percentiles are how well they did compared to the norm group.
Okay.
For example, in reading, she scored in the 53rd percentile, which means she scored better than 53% of the norm group. So looking at this bell curve right here, you can visually see that she scored a little bit above average.
Okay.
Now, percentile bands are the standard error of measurement. That is right here, okay? We all know no test is perfect and really no day is perfect. If a kid comes in and they're hungry or tired or cold, they might not do so well. So this really stands for the margin of error, meaning if Sophie were to retake the test again, she would score in this percentile band.
Okay.
Between this line.
Yeah.
So, for example, she scored in reading, she scored in the 53rd percentile, which means if she were to take the test again, she would score anywhere from the 50th percentile to the 56th percentile, okay? So it's just kind of the standard error of measurement. Just making sure that if they were to retake the test, where they would score.
Where they would fall. Okay.
Absolutely. So any questions with those?
Yeah, I'm looking at Sophie's percentile for science. So where would her percentile band be for that?
Great question. So Sophie scored in the 85th percentile in science.
Wow.
Meaning she scored better than 85% of the norm group, which is fabulous. And her percentile band would be anywhere from the 82nd percentile to the 87th percentile.
Good.
She's really taking a liking to science. And I have some science projects we've worked on in class in her portfolio, which I can share with you. Can you tell she likes science at home?
Yes, she's constantly outside exploring nature and getting dirty. And
yes,
not your typical girly girl.
Yes, she loves it. It definitely shows.
Good.
So moving on to the next column, that is scaled scores. Okay. Now scaled scores are the standard score. They take the raw score and put them into a standard form of measurement.
Okay.
For example, when you are measuring your yard in feet and inches, you have to convert them to the same measurement.
Yeah.
So this particular test has scaled scores ranging from 200 to 800, with 500 being the average.
Okay.
For example, in listening, Sophie's scaled score is 565.
Okay.
Now that we know her scaled score, we can go to the bell curve and see exactly where she fell, which is a little higher than average.
Yeah.
Which doesn't surprise me because she is a great listener.
Good.
So any questions with scaled scores?
I'm looking at her mathematics over here.
Mhm.
Where would she fall for that? I see it's a little bit below 500.
Yeah, great question. So let's take a look. Her scaled score for math was 496.
Mm-hmm.
So looking at the bell curve, she scored right below average.
Okay.
But if you look at her subtest scores and her portfolio, she really is doing great in math concepts.
Okay.
But still needs a little work with problem solving and procedures. However, problem solving and procedures is a very tough third grade concept.
Yes,
And we still have a lot of weeks to go, so she'll be fine. Yeah, she's right on track.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, that makes sense now.
Yeah,
looking at that.
Do you have any other questions about norm reference tests?
I don't think so at all. It's much easier to read now that you've gone over it.
Good, and I have a sheet that I'll give you before you leave, which has all the terms.
Okay,
on
perfect.
it,
Yeah, that would be very helpful.
just so if you need to look back
Okay.
for future reference.
Awesome.
Now let's move on to the bottom table, which is criterion reference scores.
Okay.
Criterion reference scores have no norm group, okay? The RS right here stands for raw score,
Okay.
and the NP stands for number possible.
Mm-hmm.
They break down the individual student's contents into subskills. For example, under the math concepts, the subskills were number sense and numeration.
Okay.
Okay, now let's take a look at a real example. So looking at the subskills under science, you can see that she scored average to above average,
Uh-huh.
which makes sense because she loves science.
Yes.
I've actually seen her multiple times help her table with some science concepts.
Awesome.
So she's
glad
definitely a leader.
Yeah. I'm glad.
Yeah, and so looking at structure analysis, you can tell right here that she's scoring average to above average on that as
Okay.
well. And now structure analysis has to deal with correct endings such as ed, ing, and s. So she's grasping that as well. Now what she's struggling a little bit with is phonemic analysis. As you can tell, she got 6 correct out of 11,
Mm-hmm.
which was scored as low. But phonemic analysis has to do with differentiating between sounds such as OU, OW, and
Mhm.
OA.
Okay.
But I have some flashcards if you would like to take them home and
Yeah,
work
that would
with
be
them.
awesome. Yeah,
Yeah.
I can read with her at night and do those practice. before bed.
Absolutely. I'll definitely give those to you, okay? Now, what I was really impressed with was her language scores. She scored high in all of its subskills, which was proven in her personal narrative that we did last week. I have her personal narrative in her portfolio.
Mm-hmm.
And as you can see, she used indentations, she used punctuation,
Good. Yeah.
she used capitalization, great sentence structure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I'm really proud of her with that.
Okay. Perfect.
Now I know that criterion reference scores, it's a lot of information.
Yeah.
So do you have any other questions regarding that or any of its subtests?
I think you did a very good job explaining it. I am a little bit confused about the scores under social studies. It shows that she's marked in the low, but it only says that she missed 1 or 2. I mean, I think that's pretty good.
Absolutely. Great question. I noticed the same thing when looking over this. Now, you can see that each subskill only had 6 questions for each.
Yeah.
So really, there wasn't enough questions to tell whether or not she was truly struggling.
Okay.
So in my personal opinion, I don't agree with her being marked as low,
Yeah.
just because I've been seeing how much she's been excelling in social studies in class. Last week, we were talking about government and checks and balances and stuff like that, and she was grasping it all very well.
Good.
So I wouldn't be too concerned with this just because there weren't enough questions
Yeah.
to really gauge if she was struggling or not.
Okay.
Anything else?
I'm not really. I really don't see anything on here, but I'm just kind of wondering, in your opinion, is there anything else that Sophie needs to work on at home, or that we could really spend some extra time on?
Definitely work on the flashcards that I'll be giving you.
Okay.
Other than that, just keep reading with her at night, and definitely work on her vocabulary. Okay. the more vocabulary, the better she'll do in school. So
Yes,
just keep working
good.
on stuff like that.
Okay.
I've really enjoyed having her in my class. She
Good.
really is.
I'm glad she's
she
been
really
doing
is
well
fun
for
to
you.
work with. Yes, absolutely. So any other questions before we pack up today?
I don't think so. I'm very much clear on what's going on now and can understand and read this appropriately.
Good. Okay, so here are the flashcards, and then this is the sheet with
Okay.
the different terms on it, just if you need to look back for future reference. Okay?
Yeah, that would be awesome. Thank you so much for your
Well,
help.
thank you so much. She really is a pleasure to have in class.
Good. I'm really glad you're enjoying her. So
Yeah.
good.
Well, it was good meeting with you today, and I'll schedule another conference in a couple months, okay?
Okay, awesome.
Good seeing you.
Thank
Have
you
a good
so
week.
much. Bye.